three-time Super Bowl champ, Eric Mangini. Good morning, Coach. We don't have time for pleasantries. We're jumping right in. We're talking about a guy you know a lot about, Tom Brady. He and the Bucs in L.A. this weekend to face Matt Stafford and the Rams. A showdown of 2-0 NFC teams, two teams with their sights set on returning to SoFi Stadium for Super Bowl 56. With that, it is time for Coach Mangini's game plan. Coach, if you were Sean McVay, what are you harping on this week to beat the Bucs?
Well, it's so interesting, Jenna. When I first looked at this game, I thought of Nick and I thought of doing something with Tom Brady, but I know that Nick doesn't believe that Tom Brady has anything to do with Tampa's success. So I thought I'd look at the Rams offense and what they do, just to get, because that's the only thing that matters with Tampa Bay. So looking at what they have to do and looking at the Rams challenge, the first thing they have to do is they've got to protect the football. They've got to protect the football against a very opportunistic defense, and Tampa Bay's defense has been top 5 in takeaways last season. They're top 5 in takeaways this season. And when you look at their game last year, the only reason that game was close is because of 2 second-half interceptions that leads to 10 points. And when you look at the game last week against Atlanta, there's 21 points off of turnovers, including 2 pick-six. And so it seems like it's a blowout, but it's really a blowout because those turnovers and the points that it generated. So that's the first thing they have to do. And the second thing is they've got to be able to generate big plays. And this offense is set up to have big plays. There's several of them built into the system, and Tampa's defense is a hard defense to go the long, hard way against, to have those long, sustained drives. And the numbers, Tampa's given up 10 plays of over 20 yards this season, 10 pass plays, where last year they only gave up 46. And the Rams have generated 4 plays of 40-plus yards already this season, where all of last season they only had 6. So there's going to be some chances there, and they need to be able to do that. And then the third thing, and the most important thing, is they have to be able to handle Tampa's multiple disguises and pressure looks. And Tampa pressures at one of the highest rates in the league. They did it last year at about 39%. This year they're over 40%, and they do a really good job of forcing post-snap reads. And I'm going to show you a great play from last season that illustrates what the Rams need to do. This is actually early in the game. It's a third down play. It's on the first drive. It leads to a touchdown, and it ends up going for a little under 40 yards. And what Tampa's doing is they're showing a cover 2 shell, and they've walked the linebackers up in the A-gap. This is their core blitz look, and they can bring either one of those guys or the guy off the slot. All 3 of those guys are a potential threat. And what the Rams are going to do is they put all 3 wide receivers on one side, and they put the tight end on the other side, and that gives them man-zone answers. It tells them right now the corners aren't over, so Tampa's playing a zone. Post-snap, Tampa rotates down into cover 3. They drop out one of the linebackers. The other linebacker runs a game with the defensive lineman. The Rams do a really good job of creating a pocket and buying time. Now they can read the slot corner. Woods is going to come up and hook it up. Kupp's going to go behind him. There's a huge window there. You can see the space. They hit Kupp in the window. Kupp has a nice catch and run, and it goes for 39 yards. It's a big play because they handled the look. They handled the disguise. They were able to pick up the pressure, and this is what I'm talking about. And what I want to do is I want to show you a play from last week, and this rarely happens, okay? But in last week's game, Atlanta runs exactly the same offensive formation, exactly the same. Tampa runs exactly the same defensive front. Atlanta can't handle the pressure. You're going to see Matt Ryan pressured. He doesn't have the post-snap read. He goes to the hook player. Now it's a pick-6 for a touchdown. And that's the difference between handling it and not handling it and what that potential is.
Wow. All right, so hold on. So all right, so first of all, this is a good reminder.
Coach.
Football's really complicated.
Well done.
Football's really complicated. And like, there's so many things going on that go into why a play works or doesn't. But so I want to better understand, Coach, the comp between last year, the play against the Bucs, or the Rams play, the 2 plays you showed. Yep. Tampa did the same thing. I know the offensive formations were the same. Tampa did the same thing defensively. The difference was the pressure got there, or they also changed what they did coverage-wise?
It was exactly the same pressure look. It was essentially the same pressure. The only difference is they brought one extra player, but that player had no effect on it. The issue was more the fact that Atlanta couldn't handle the game inside the way that the Rams did. But identical formation offensively, identical defensive look, identical shell in the coverage. One handles it, one doesn't. And the post-snap read, trying to pressure the ball into the short route, where we saw the slot corner sit on it against the Rams, just like let's see how he sits on it against Atlanta. Now, don't go to the right space, touchdown.
So I wanted to make sure I understood. So I guess my question there is, if you can handle the pressure in that look, it's going to work. Like what Atlanta was, that play for Atlanta should have worked. It's probably what I don't know, if they saw on film the same thing you did, where they recognize it and it gets blown up because they can't handle the inside game, right? Because Matt Ryan sees pressure coming in his face, so instead of having the extra second, he has to get the ball out because he's getting hit. And that's the difference. I mean, by the way, time score situation here, it's a 10-point game. There's plenty of time left. If this play doesn't happen, it's very possibly going to be a 3-point game here in a few minutes, and Tampa's in a real fight. Instead, this ended the football game.
Yeah, and what Tampa does a really good job of is they'll bring that look and bring pressure. They'll show that look and only rush 3 players. They'll show the cover 2 shell like they did against the Rams and then rotate down to a cover 3 shell. So it really forces the quarterback and the wide receivers and the offensive line to make all of these post-snap decisions. And if you can't navigate through the things post-snap, that's what happens. You get a guy free in the quarterback's face. The quarterback thinks it's 2 deep instead of 3 deep and goes to the wrong read. And that, outside of having good players, Tampa does a nice job of putting pressure on the offense mentally.
Coach, I agree. I think those are great points about the offense for the Rams, what they need to do. Let's go to the other side of the ball. How would you use Jalen Ramsey? Like, would you put him on one receiver and say, take away that receiver and leave the rest of them to your other defenders? Because obviously they got a lot of weapons. Or would you just have him play, various receivers? And if you'd have him lock in on one, who would it be?
Well, when you look at the success that they've had this year, Cooper Kupp's having a great season. And to me, he's underrated in terms of what he's done and what he's able to do. And he's been an issue early in the season for everybody that played. So I would probably if you're going to take one out, typically what you do, Chris, is you take one out and you double the other one. So if you're going to isolate one player, and we used to do this with Ty Law and Otis Smith all the time, we'd put Ty Law on their best guy, and then we'd use Otis to beat up their second best guy and roll the safety over the top or have some type of combination to try to take out those two. Now, what that does is when you have that type of concept, it limits what you can do from a zone perspective and what you can do from a zone blitz perspective. So typically you'll have a package where you're going to say, okay, we're going to handle their 2 biggest threats, and then you have the rest of the core defense that allows you to be multiple and do the things that you have a lot of reps built up on.
So would you try to have Ramsey take away one guy or not? One of Tampa's receivers?
I would mix some of that in, Chris, especially on 3rd down, and I would probably have Ramsey work. If I had to choose, I think I would take away Kupp at this point.